Good evening. I'm calling to order this meeting, this joint meeting of the Gladstone City Council and the Clackamas Fire District Board. It is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. City of Gladstone is abiding by guidelines set forth in House Bill 2560, which requires the governing body of the public body, to the extent reasonably possible, to make all meetings accessible remotely through technological means and provide opportunity for members of the general public to remotely submit oral and written testimony during meetings to the extent in-person oral and written testimony is allowed. Therefore, this meeting will be open to the public both in person and virtually using the Zoom platform. The public is welcome to attend the joint meeting in person or online. However, in general, this meeting will operate as a work session, an information gathering meeting to help guide the city council in some decisions that they will be making in the future. So no public comment is likely to be allowed tonight. So I think we should start, since this is the first time we have that this city council in its current configuration has met with the Clackamas Fire Board. We should go around and introduce ourselves, and then we'll do the flag salute and start the meeting itself. So I will start to my right.
I'm Jackie Bett, City Administrator.
Michael Milch, Mayor of Gladstone.
Chad Jacobs, City Attorney for City of Gladstone.
Brian Stewart, Assistant Chief of the Clackamas Fire.
Vanessa Huckabee, Council President.
Maria Mitchell, City Councilor.
Gabrielle Blaug, City Councilor.
Chris Edmonds, Coastline Public Affairs.
Lindsay Hendren, Coastline Public Affairs.
Andrew Labonte, City Council.
Jim Searing, Clackamas Fire Director.
Councilor Mindy Garlington.
Chris Hawes, Board President, Clackamas Fire District.
Nick Brown, Fire Chief, Clackamas Fire.
Jay Cross, Director, Clackamas Fire.
Oh, yeah. Steve Dieters, Assistant Fire Chief.
Come on, Steven.
Sorry.
Steve Dieters, Clackamas Fire.
Mark Whitaker, Chief Financial Officer, Clackamas Fire.
Shelby Hopkins, Executive Manager, Clackamas Fire.
Dan Mulek, Assistant Chief with Clackamas Fire.
Do you also have an online board member?
I'm Thomas Joseph, Clackamas Fire Director.
And also online, we have Kathy Brucker, Finance Director for the City of Gladstone. Let's stand for the flag salute. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you. I'm going to turn the meeting over at this point to Chris Hawes, the Fire District Board President, and take it.
See if I can not lose the electronics. Thank you. Appreciate it. We're glad to be here. I think this has been a wonderful partnership that we've had so far with the City of Gladstone. So we've taken the contract. I know that our staff and the board has appreciated the cooperation and support that we've had from the City Council and the city staff. I've gotten to I got to go to the Halloween gathering last year and found out that I'm probably going to be here for Halloween next year. So that was about as much fun as an old guy has had in a long time. Goblins of every size. These partnerships have worked really well over the years, and this one is no exception. Both your citizens and ours have benefited from this partnership, and we're looking forward to cementing the partnership even further in the future. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so as the mayor mentioned at the beginning of our meeting, we have 5 new city councilors that weren't on the council when we first entered into the contract for services. So what I would like to do is to give a brief history of how we got to where we are today. So the city council adopted a goal for public safety, specifically to maintain coverage for fire suppression and emergency services and to prepare for the Clackamas Fire District annexation measure. Back in 2021, the city of Gladstone discussed its inability to provide a consistent level of fire and emergency services to the public. We made it clear that the fire and emergency services condition was not caused by a failure of past fire department leadership, city management, or elected officials. It was simply due to change in conditions, including the evolution of emergency services, increased community expectations, the demands on volunteer or part-time firefighters, and the complexity and cost of modern emergency services. Additionally, the COVID pandemic, the massive wildfires of 2020, the ice storm of 2021, and other extreme events accelerated the challenges. So after an extensive public process in April of 2022, the City of Gladstone and Clackamas Fire District entered into a 5-year agreement to provide fire and emergency services to the residents of Gladstone. Clackamas Fire cares deeply about the Gladstone community and the level of service they provide our citizens. We trust Fire Chief Nick Brown's leadership, and our partnership has enhanced fire and emergency services response times. They are at the Gladstone Fire Station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year-round. This includes having chief officer coverage and a paramedic on duty daily in Gladstone. They also have a strong community presence in Gladstone for our signature events, such as the Community Festival, Halloween, 4th of July, and the Easter egg hunt. Additionally, they provide safety demonstrations, open houses, and educational programs. These events help build trust, raise awareness about fire prevention, and strengthen the connection between firefighters and the people they serve. Some other key elements I want to mention in our agreement is that the city retains ownership of the fire station at 555 Portland Avenue. The Gladstone identity has been maintained on the station, apparatus, and promotional materials. There is a joint oversight review committee, which is comprised of 2 elected officials from the city, which is Councilor Garlington, the city administrator, 2 elected officials from the fire district, and the fire chief and assistant fire chief. We discussed the services provided, policy development, budget development, and financial aspects of the agreement. During our contract negotiations, Clackamas Fire was very attentive to the City of Gladstone's direction for a cost-neutral contract. In other words, the city could only afford to pay Clackamas Fire what we were paying for the existing fire services, which at that time was $2,150,000. We had calculations for future years based on assessed valuation growth for the city. The equity of the 2020 Pierce fire engine the city recently purchased was also factored into the agreement as a cash asset. So this amount equates to $2.06 per thousand, which if you break that down, it's $1.75 from the general fund and 31 cents from the fire levy. We have a fire levy that expires in June of 2029. So we pay $2.06 per thousand in our contract, and Clackamas Fire District's rate for all others is $2.40 per thousand. $2.40 per thousand. So as you can see, this has been a favorable contract for the Gladstone residents, which we negotiated in good faith for a 5-year contract. It was with the understanding that the city would work towards getting to the district's rate of $2.40 per thousand, which is the purpose of tonight, to start talking about those conversations. So that gives you a little bit of overview of where we are tonight. I'm going to have Chief Brown say a few words, and then we'll get into our presentation for tonight.
Thank you so much, City Administrator Betts. I can't tell you how much of an honor it's been to be able to serve side by side with Jackie, to be able to learn from her. And these last 3 years of being your fire chief have flown by. It's amazing that it's been 3 years. We're knocking on 3 years. I remember when sitting in these chambers and having this discussion and promising a few things. Number one was that we were promising you to earn the trust from you and the community. And I'm proud to say I believe we've done just that. The firefighters who are sworn to serve and dedicated to save have answered the call every time, and they continue to answer the call. They're an amazing group who are dedicated to this cause, and they are so proud to be immersed in the community and to be able to serve the citizens of Gladstone, our community. I promised you that. I promised you that we wouldn't be this big evil fire department, that we would immerse ourselves into the community and become part of the community. And I'm proud to say that we've met that promise. Sitting in the I'm gonna call it the cheap seats right now, is Battalion Chief Mike Bauer. Mike, if you just stand for me, I'd greatly appreciate it. So if you remember, Mike was the first captain that we brought in to staff Station 22, and was a face at many city council meetings, giving updates about the station and the events in the community. Proud to say Mike is now battalion chief covering this battalion, and he wasn't going to miss this meeting. When we talked earlier, he goes, yeah, I'm going to be there, and it's just because of that pride and dedication that he has for this community as well. I'm humbled and honored to be sitting here today and having this discussion. I'm excited about it, and it's just an absolute honor to be your fire chief. And so with that, turn it back over to you, Jackie. Thank you.
Thank you. So Chris, did you want to introduce yourself a little bit and then go through the presentation?
Yeah. Sorry, I need to use my microphone here. Hi, Chris Edmonds with Coastline Public Affairs. Coastline has been in business for about 5 years. We started it in the pandemic. We focus and specialize in helping local governments navigate complex situations. And sometimes that involves levy campaigns, bond measures, annexation measures, UGB expansions, that sort of process step. I am going to rely at part on my colleague, Lindsay Hendren, who's sitting to my left. We've been working with Clackamas Fire going back to 2022. We helped Clackamas Fire put together its first ever levy, which is going to raise about $75 million over a 5-year period. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I think that one of the things that sets us apart, just kind of some background on Coastline, is that we have really deep roots here in Clackamas County. I'm actually a 5th generation Clackamas County resident, have worked with half a dozen elected officials in and around Clackamas County through my career. So we know this community really well. And we've got a pretty short slide deck presentation that we're going to walk you through kind of how we typically look at measures like these, some of our planned outreach efforts, and then we want to review some messaging and materials that you have in the packets in front of you, and talk about where we're going to go next and get your feedback on that. So I hope that I'm holding it. Oh, now it started. Did that go? Yes, there we go. All right, so the first thing that I like to start these off with is just a framework of how we see success or failure when it comes to passing a ballot measure that has a revenue component associated with it. So these are not our rules. We've paraphrased them a little bit, but they're actually from Hanover Research, which is a national group based out of Washington, D.C. It's a think tank that, gosh, it was 12 years ago now, did an exhaustive nationwide survey of districts, special districts and local governments across the country. And they wanted to answer a simple question, which is like, what are the characteristics that define success or failure when passing a revenue measure? So they looked at thousands of examples, and they ultimately came up with these 5 rules. The first is Does the proposed revenue impacting measure demonstrate a sufficient need? So is there a need for a local tax impact? 2, do voters perceive a direct benefit? It's that what's in it for me question. And 3, is everything that is being proposed considered essential? More often than not, we see these types of examples pop up when school districts may try to tack a football stadium cover onto a school bond measure, or add a swimming pool in, right? These types of things that voters don't necessarily see as essential. 4 is trust. Does the referring jurisdiction have a strong track record of both fiduciary responsibility and also community involvement, engaging local stakeholders at every step of the way? And then number 5, it's simple. Is it affordable? And there is no quantifiable level of, what's affordable and what isn't. It has to match the community. So something that's affordable in unincorporated Clackamas may look different than what's considered affordable in Lake Oswego for any particular issue. So you really have to match the community. So when we translate that into how we develop a theoretical or hypothetical measure, this is sort of the 10,000-foot view of the timeline that we're trying to walk through here together. We started with evaluating options for long-term fire and emergency services. And it appears that there is a strengthening consensus toward in pursuing an annexation measure in November of 2025. So in thinking about that, we have spent the last several months developing a community engagement and a research process. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we will be moving very shortly into a process of engaging the community directly through a couple open houses, as well as a qualitative survey that will go out community-wide. And then at that point, it's incumbent on this body, and it'll actually be the purview of the Gladstone City Council to develop ballot measure language and refer it to voters. I have a little bug there on the corner that the deadline to file with the Clackamas County Clerk for that text is August 15th. So we would want to see that work get completed in July, ideally. And then there's several months that you have for community engagement and a public vote in November of 2025. A lot of times what we would do if we were developing a measure like this is want to go out with a quantitative survey. But when we looked at the issue set and the sample size of Gladstone, realized it'd be fairly cost prohibitive, as well as statistically difficult right now to go and get a full scientific survey completed on this. I do want to note that we did go out in March on a similar issue for the Sandy Fire District. That is a much, and if we were just to kind of talk in generalities here, a much less tax-friendly community that's looking similarly at an annexation that would have a tax impact fairly close to what Gladstone's would be in annexing into Clackamas Fire District. We found 70% off the bat with no education supporting annexation in Sandy, 91% approval rating right off the bat for Clackamas Fire in that community, which has had a contract in place since 2022. And then when we educated survey respondents in Sandy Fire District on the basic pros, costs and benefits of annexation, support actually grew to 80% at the completion of the survey. So very, very strong results in a community that is that has some skepticism around government and taxation, right? So I thought that was worth noting. And that is available if anybody would like to take a look at it. Just ask me afterward, and I'd be happy to share it with you. So here is our recommended approach to developing a measure. So we think that you should wait until after the conclusion of both the qualitative survey, which will be completed by mid-May, as well as the open houses completed at about the same time. So that way you're able to incorporate any community feedback that comes along the way. Again, this survey is going to be sent very open-ended. We won't be able to control it for scientific results. So we're going to be looking less at, what percentage supports and what percentage opposes, but we're going to look for dominant themes in the survey responses. That'll help instruct us about messages to be aware of, other, risks, or if there was a community concern that we saw repeated over and over, we would want to take that into consideration. But it'll give us a chance of where, to see kind of where some of the key highest engaged stakeholders in the community are at relative to this. And then we will want to align the measure language. And this is my chance to remind everybody that there are kind of 4 elements to referring a ballot measure. So you have a measure title that's limited to 10 words. That's what you see when you look at the ballot. Then you have a measure question that's limited to 20 words, and that's the actual ballot question that's being asked. And then there's a measure summary, and I'm going to forget the word length, the requirements on there. But that should give an unbiased overview of what the measure would actually do. Then there's an explanatory statement, a measure explanatory statement, and that would be submitted by the referring jurisdiction or the Gladstone City Council. And that gives you a chance to say in a much more kind of persuasive way, the why are we doing this? So the first 3 are really all about the what, unbiased. That 4th piece is where you get a chance to, as counselors, to pick up the pen a little bit and make the compelling case to the community in the voters pamphlet as far as why you're referring the measure and what the benefits will be to the city over the long term. Number 3 on that bullet, we are always in favor of very clearly just stating the cost impacts. Telling voters are very smart, and we want to give them a lot of credit. So we don't like to hide the football. We know that in this referral, there would be a 34-cent per thousand property tax impact to voters. We want to make that really clear so that voters are able to make that value proposition on their own, but then also be able to clearly communicate in an unbiased manner what the benefits of annexation would be, as well as the risks of not annexing. And so when you put those out there together, just like we do at the grocery store, voters are able to make a clear choice about how to spend their money. Number 4, we really aim for a 4th grade reading level. So something that you might hear from us over the next few months as we talk about some of the more complex issues that are at play. I know that one that's probably burning on people's mind is kind of the city's process itself for how it will stop collecting on the levy, and also reduce local property tax collections to offset, the increase. We're going to want to aim for as simple as possible. So we want to tell voters what is happening, and we want to make sure that it's accessible if somebody really wants to find out how it's happening. But usually the what is more important than the how. Most people don't wake up in the morning thinking about kind of how government finance works, maybe with the exception of Mark Whitaker over there. And then number 5, we saw this pop up in the Sandy survey. It was a very strong performing message that both districts support, the city of Gladstone, the city of Clackamas Fire District, the council and the board both support this decision, as well as local firefighters on the front lines. We'd like to be able to carry that message forward where possible. So in terms of community engagement, we will be sending out a qualitative survey, and we're really just going to try to get this link into as many hands as possible, or as many computer screens, phone screens as possible. So that means sharing it on the city website, Facebook, Clackamas Fire District website and Facebook, linking up with other community partners who can share it out as well. And it's going to be open-ended. There's no real cost-effective way for us to be able to just limit that only to people who are within the city of Gladstone. So what we're asking folks to do is input their zip code. On the front end is sort of a basic screen to help us, ensure that we're getting as close to representative of the community as possible. And we're really going to focus on understanding if people are satisfied with fire services, if they're not, how they're satisfied, if there are any concerns with some open-ended responses, getting an assessment on both numerically what folks think the highest priority for future investment in fire services should be, as well as rank ordering those investments. So we get a sense of what sort of the top 3 performers are in terms of in people's minds. For example, in the survey we completed in Sandy, we found that 84% of respondents were very concerned about the risk from wildfire, versus fewer than 40% responding that they were very concerned about flooding, a major winter storm. So we're like, okay, wildfire is performing twice the level of any other concerns there. Even though this is a less rural community, obviously, and it's much more urbanized, I would expect that concerns about wildfire are very high in this community as well. Especially with what we've experienced over the last 5 years here, and what we just saw take place in the city of Los Angeles. So that will be something that we're going to talk about. Obviously, a big benefit to joining a larger district, to having a consolidated district, is the ability to deploy specialized equipment where necessary, to have more tactical responses when needed, and that long-term stability, creating that overall fire shield. And so that survey will run from April 30th to June 15th, but we'll be able to kind of dip in and see responses as they come out, and we'll prepare reports for you based on those, so you'll be able to see how the constituents are responding. We have 2 open houses that are scheduled right now. We like to do open houses rather than community forums, for the simple reason that they're more fun to attend, so more people attend them, especially when you can tell them that there's going to be somebody dressed in a dog mascot, walking around. There will be firefighters there giving stickers, and lots of fun games for the kids, coloring books, all that sort of stuff. But the way that we organize these is we like to display boards within an open room. So one will be at the fire station, another will be at the community center, and we like to staff somebody at each one of those boards so that people can, in a self-guided way, engage with the material, but also have a chance to get their questions asked and answered directly by somebody who's standing there in uniform. I will walk through very shortly our draft boards for that open house right now. So with that, I think that we should start. Tammy, would you mind pulling up the Gladstone open house boards? Yeah. Do you have those handy on you? Oh, they're in the packet. It's all right. I can just refer you to what's already in your packet. But now I'm going to need to pull it up. All right, I have my packet here.
Mr. Mayor, the dog costume, I Rochambeau. I think I'm going to win, but we'll see who wins between you and me for the dog costume for the open houses. Sound good?
Do you have them? Thank you, Lindsay. Great. All right, so we like to start these off what we would call somebody's own experiential tour of the issue set. We want to start it off with something that's easy and helping to contextualize the issue. So we have a board for the history of Clackamas fire that's really important. And one thing we'll be emphasizing at this slide, or at this board, excuse me, is that Clackamas fire has been steadily growing for decades, many decades, in fact. We found that in the Sandy DHM survey, respondents responded very favorably to the notion that their neighbors in Happy Valley, in Boring, in Oregon City had also had good experiences with Clackamas fire while under contract and decided to annex into the district and continued to have a good experience. So this will be an opportunity for us to kind of share how Clackamas Fire District has grown over the years and contextualize that, Gladstone joining Clackamas Fire District would simply be following in the footsteps of sort of a long list of peers in the region. We also have a board, number 2, on the history of Gladstone fire that ends with Clackamas, or with Gladstone fire contracting with Clackamas fire, and then the decision to consider an annexation. We walk folks through a potential timeline for annexation that begins in May and runs all the way through November. You have those materials in front of you. We put up a slide of the Clackamas Fire District, and I really love the map of the Clackamas Fire District for this particular open house because it shows one little tiny piece of red in a sea of green. This is a great opportunity to show anybody from the community who happens to wander by this board to just, the map says it all, right? We're not trying to do something crazy here or unprecedented, but rather it's a very logical step to just join that sea of green that surrounds the city of Gladstone. We have a slide on the benefits of annexation. I think that we will add another board to this, but consider this a placeholder right now. That we want to have a clear message about the why now, as well as the so what in there. So why we're pursuing an annexation right now is obviously because we're trying to get out ahead of potential cost impacts that could be coming in the future. There's a laundry list of benefits to doing that. But then also on the so what, we need to have a very clear articulated message about what could happen, to fire services if annexation were to not be successful. And then I'd like to add another board to what you have in front of you with more clearly delineated benefits, including commitments, around protecting ISO ratings, ensuring our professional staffing levels, and representation on the Clackamas Fire District Board, as well as the opportunity to vote on any future funding measures. We have a simple board on what annexation would cost. And I think it's important that the same base amount is a key phrase that is included in the first bullet. This is something that I would recommend that anybody who's going to be communicating with members of the public or talking about this issue in an official capacity over the next several months should be using the same base amount. because it really does help contextualize it in the same way that Gladstone's that tiny little piece of red in that larger sea of green. Everybody in that sea of green is paying $2.40 per thousand as a base rate. So we're not talking about Gladstone getting a different deal than the broader community in the Clackamas Fire District territory, but we're rather talking about paying the same amount, receiving the same service level, and having the same rights in terms of representation and the ability to vote on tax measures. And then we contextualize, because nobody knows what their actual, or very few people at least, know what their tax assessed value on their home is. And even fewer are able to calculate that number in their head in a public setting. So best practice, we want to include what that tax impact would likely be in the same way that you would do that for a levy or a bond measure. In this case, with the county assessor, it's a little less than $7.50 per month for the median assessed homeowner in Gladstone. That means half pay fewer, half pay more. Very important, and we may make some slight changes to this particular issue. I believe that everybody's here is up to speed, but if not, just to reinforce, it is the plan of Clackamas Fire District to not levy its local option levy on the residents of Gladstone on its current 5-year local option levy. That levy will be up for renewal. It expires in 2028. Clackamas Fire District may go out to renew that in 2027. But at this point, Clackamas Fire District has decided to only pursue the base rate of $2.40 per thousand for Gladstone residents. And what that means is residents of Gladstone, just like the rest of the district, would have the opportunity to vote on any future funding measure. So if Clackamas Fire District were to go out to renew that levy at 52 cents per thousand in 2027, Gladstone residents would have the opportunity to vote on it along with the rest of the district before that would be levied. It's a very complicated message to be able to explain at a 4th grade reading level, but we do have some updated language that I think we're going to include on this board as well. And then finally, that last piece is, of course, the all-important how to stay informed. So we do have a placeholder landing page. It's live, but we're not promoting it yet on the Clackamas Fire District website. We will work with the city to ensure that we're mirroring on the Gladstone Fire page what is on the Clackamas Fire page. And then also that Gladstone Fire page does link out to the Clackamas Fire District page. If you just click on just about anything on that page takes you to Clackamas Fire District. We will have a dedicated, we have a placeholder email address right now, but we'll have a dedicated email address where folks can send their questions and they'll get answered by a real human being. And as you can see, a placeholder for a QR code that anybody will be able to just scan. So questions or comments on the boards that we have prepared before we move on to the FAQ document? Yes, correct. Correct. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Chief. So we will prepare business cards as well that'll have the QR code on them. We found this to be pretty handy because people can just keep them in their pocket, especially for our firefighters. You know, they can just keep them up in the breast pocket and hand them out. We'll also provide them to the city so counselors can have them on hand. This helps in, you know, when you're in a conversation, you know, whether it's with your neighbor or a constituent, and you know, you're rattling off your core messages and you're able to say, hey, take this card, go to the website, has a more detailed FAQ.
Thank you for the thoroughness of that presentation, because you did touch on some things that weren't clear from the written materials itself, particularly the impact of the levy that was just recently enacted, because the citizens of Gladstone were not eligible to vote on that because they're not in the district. And if you and you mentioned, going in at the same rate. Well, they're going at the same basic rate, but not the combined rate of the levy on top of that. And so I'm glad to have that clarification. I think the other question that people will have is, we are just coming up to the end of the third year of what Administrator Betts said was a 5-year contract. And I think the question that people in the community might have is, why now? Why, and then the other question is, and you said you were very clear that we need to explain the consequences of voting down a measure like this. What happens if the voters don't approve it? So can you explain part of the reasoning behind us looking at this, the timing of this conversation right now?
Sure. Well, in terms of the why from a policy standpoint, I will simply reiterate, or I guess try to paraphrase conversations that have already been had around this decision. The reason why you would do this now is one, from a practical standpoint. If annexation were to not be successful in terms of a vote of the public, it would give you the opportunity to reassess whether that would be a contract extension or pursuing annexation again before the expiration of the contract itself. The reason why it makes sense from the standpoint of a voter of what's in it for me is predictability, long-term security for fire services, the stability of knowing that my ISO rating is going to remain the same, that I'll be able to get insurance on my business or on my home. And then also it's preventing those service cuts or significant tax increases that could come down the pipeline. Municipal fire departments in recent years, many municipalities across the state have seen dramatic increases in terms of the cost of providing their fire services relative to what Clackamas Fire District is charging its residents. So it's preventing against those significant cost impacts, preventing against significant service increases, and it's giving that peace of mind and stability that we're going to have a fire agency for a long time to come.
And you mentioned the other issue that I had a question about. Have we yet seen any impact on ISO ratings for the citizens and businesses in Gladstone related to this contract merger? I'll call it a merger, it's not technically. Or do we expect to see additional information? So do you have an answer?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. So we have not seen any change in the ISO rating as of yet, because Gladstone has not been re-rated. We are working through that process today, well, this kind of time frame, with the Insurance Services Office, who does the ISO ratings. The last time that we have record of Gladstone being rated was in 2014, I believe, and it's a ISO class 4 rating. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the premier, like top level, down to 10 being the lowest service level of a number of factors, Gladstone has been rated at a 4 for the last decade. So we are working through that process, myself and the fire marshal. We have a meeting on May 20th to sit down and kind of button that piece up. And so they evaluate a number of factors, including water supply, communications, staffing, fire inspector processes, those types of things. So today, our last rating was, I can't remember what year, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago for Clackamas Fire. And a lot of the things that we do in Clackamas Fire, because we provide all the staffing, because we provide the responses, will carry over in terms of scores. So we would expect to see those improve. I've been working with Administrator Betts on getting all of the water supply pieces buttoned up. So we've gotten all the hydrants, I believe, inspected, or 95% of them inspected. We've had a number of those get repaired. So we've been working through the processes that we can to maximize the score that Gladstone would receive. But as long as Gladstone is a separate entity, they will receive a separate score.
Yeah.
But today, your Gladstone's a 4, Clackamas is a 2. So I think there's room to improve, but we won't know until May 20th, and then they do their calculations.
So obviously they don't do that as frequently as people would probably like. It's a very long, drawn out process. And the other thing that might be helpful then is if there's some way of monetizing, attaching a value to the difference in an improved rating. Because I would think that for commercial property taxpayers especially, to know that they would save a significant amount on insurance costs, and for homeowners as well, might be a factor that would be important to promote in trying to get voter approval.
And if I may, I'll just speak to that briefly. So what the Insurance Services Office does is it provides the rating, and then insurers can take that rating, they'll apply their own loss experience, however else they want to factor that in. So it's difficult for us to generalize what the benefit of any increase would be. But nominally, you could broadly suggest that an increase from any one level to the next, so going from a 4 to a 3 or from a 10 to a 9, can be approximately a 3 to 5% savings on the fire insurance.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, I think we need to be accurate and honest with the people about it. It's not something that you can easily attach a number to, but I appreciate that information. So that'll help guide the folks that are marketing this to the community to what information is valuable to share, what wouldn't be valuable to share. I wonder if other questions, other counselors or directors have questions or comments that will enhance this discussion. Counselor Garlington.
I have a couple of questions. So the fire and the police levies are coming to 3 years old. We're gonna nix the one for the fire and bring on a 5-year levy and also the annexation with Clackamas Fire.
Not the 5-year levy for Clackamas
Or, I mean,
Fire
just,
yet.
just annex. We're gonna nix the
city levy.
Yes. My question is, are we concerned at all that they're not now happening in the same emergency services? Because we've always run them together.
Are you talking about renewing the police levy if there's no fire levy?
Yeah.
Well,
Kind of, what do you think there?
one of the big picture ideas then is if we reduce collecting our permanent tax rate for 3 years, when the police levy expires, we could decide to collect our permanent tax rate, the 69 cents per thousand, and not have to go out for a police levy. It just then gets folded into the general fund. So that's a future policy decision that could be made. Chad and I are going to have to discuss the language around not collecting the permanent tax rate because we think that's important to be communicated in order for this to pass. So that the residents know that it truly is only a 34-cent per thousand increase. But that's what my recommendation would be for the future of the police levy.
Okay. Okay, so that, go ahead. Oh, I thought somebody, okay. On your survey, do you ask on that survey if people have used, in Gladstone, have you used the services of Clackamas Fire? Is that important or not? Could that be?
Do we ask that in the survey?
Yeah.
Within the last 2 years, right?
Last 2
I
years.
think, yeah, so we ask if they've used them within the last 2 years.
Okay. The Mayor Milch asked about the service or the ISO rating. And then my other comment was on page 1.8 of the, what are the benefits of the annexation? And we've always said that our volunteers were not volunteers. They were paid on call volunteers. And I kind of hesitate to use that word straight volunteer because I don't want people to think in their mind that we're replacing something that we got for free when it was never that. Am I saying that correct, Administrator Betts?
Yes, they received a stipend,
Okay, so
We-
they were paid.
paid on call
Volunteers.
volunteers. Yes.
I think that that language needs to be used, in my opinion. I mean, you can say different, if somebody else has another thought. But the word volunteer tells me no money, but paid on call shows that these people had always been paid.
Happy to make that change.
Sorry. If you look at the storybook, we can make that change, of course, but if you look at the history of Gladstone, 1950s to present, it does say there, over the next few decades, firefighters transitioned from volunteers to paid on-call staff over time with stipends and wages introduced. So maybe it's just that same language? Is that what you're
Mhm.
suggesting?
Yes.
Would that meet the intent?
I mean, I guess in my mind, I would think if somebody came in and only spent 3 minutes reading a
Yep.
sign, would they read both signs in order to get all of that information? Or, if they only looked at the
Yeah.
large bold print over here, because that was the quickest to read as they were.
But if it said,
through with 3 children.
if it said those words, would that meet what
Yes.
yeah, okay,
Yes.
perfect.
So basically what we're doing is deciding whether, like, if this goes all the way through and the voters approve, we would have shortened the contract by 1 year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and do we know what that cost of that 1 year, the difference between the rate in the contract versus the annexation rate would be?
We have not calculated that yet.
That might be interesting, just so we have an idea. Especially because I can imagine that people can do the math and be like, why aren't you waiting till the contract expires so you can save this amount of money? Was just my thought.
And I'll ask either Kathy Brucker or Administrator Betts. You calculated $1.75 per thousand is the current estimate of the cost to the citizens for fire services, excluding the levy.
That's correct.
Okay, and so we have not done our budget yet for the upcoming biennium. So that may reflect, does that reflect the current fiscal year portion of the cost? Or is it safe to project what portion of our budget would that cost would encompass for next year? Kathy, I see your face online.
We currently, in the proposed budget that we're putting together right now, we currently have calculated what the existing IGA would cost us over the next biennium.
Okay, so you're already thinking about that for the biennium itself, which would take us to the 2 years and be able to give us a good educated guess on the number that Councilor Blaug is asking about.
Correct.
Okay. You don't need to share that with us yet because I know that's all in process.
Yes, it is.
But I do want to say that if we do take it to the voters in November and the annexation passes, that we would do an adjustment in that second year to reflect that.
Yes. And then if I may continue on that thought, not only would we be doing the adjustment on the expenditure side, but we would also be doing the adjustment as a reduction of the property taxes also. The collection of the property taxes in the second year.
Yes, that and Administrator Betts indicated that's the thing where we have to we're working on how we will describe how that's done, but the effect of it will be that we would not collect the amount of taxes that we would have collected had we not approved the annexation.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't have a comment concerning this. I was just wondering if the blinds come down because it's right in all of our eyes.
Oh yeah, you've got that one angle, right? Does it go over the door? I don't think it does. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right, do any of the other directors or counselors have questions or comments? Oh, yeah, Jim, go ahead.
I just had a question on the timing. So if the election was in November and if it was affirmative and passed, it actually doesn't take effect for 7.5 more months, right?
Correct.
Until July 1st of 2026.
Correct.
So even though it's this year, it's actually almost not quite a year.
Yeah, it would be at
Quarters
the,
of a year away.
the end of the
before it
fiscal
even
year.
starts.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, yes, it would be on a fiscal year basis. So July 1 of a year from now, if it passes in November of this year.
Okay. Yep.
Chris, your light's
So,
on?
yeah,
Go ahead.
there's one more document that we wanted to review with you. This is the frequently asked questions document that you should all have. Now, this is iterative. So right now, I think we're on version number 4 of this document. We will probably get to at least version 11 by the time that we're done with this. Some of the messaging at this point is a little bit placeholder because we don't want to get out in front of the decision making of the council and of the fire district board. So, but we do want to telegraph the process and how it's moving forward. So we'll probably make some changes to this and incorporate any feedback that you have before it's actually shared directly with the public. And then even once it's in the public, we'll have dates and version numbers on these documents because it'll be changed and updated as we move through the rest of this year. So it's important, that we provide that overall context right off the bat about how this partnership came about. It's a lot of the stuff we've already talked about here. Explaining when the current service agreement ends, the rationale for contracting with Clackamas Fire at a basic level. I would be really interested. I always have these, I would be interested to just know at a basic level what percentage of residents of the city of Gladstone are aware or able to even recall that the city made a decision to contract out with Clackamas Fire for fire district services. So we need to remind people about, some of the basic decisions that have been made. Being able to answer questions about options that are in front of Gladstone. And that's one of those questions where there aren't many other options that the city of Gladstone has, and we want to be able to answer that directly. On page 2, some information about the cost, which we'll continue to refine as we can get that tighter and shorter. The benefit of annexation. Right now we have a box on there about information on attending the open houses. Obviously, after the open houses, we'll pull that out, make a new version of this document. And then some history about Clackamas Fire's experience in combining with neighboring districts. And we need to take out that word merging in that headline and in the other sentence. Any questions or comments on this FAQ document itself? And if you think of something later, you can always reach out to us directly. Again, it's an iterative process.
We've had recent experience in preparing a ballot measure because we have an item on the upcoming May election that is not of the same fiscal impact, but we still had to follow all the same rules about the wording in the statements that go before the voters. And I want to commend our city attorney's office for their help in getting in narrowing down those words and the word count and all that, and still providing enough information for voters to make an informed decision. If you publish, or the city publishes on its website, or the district on its, an FAQ document like this, is the language here subject to some of the same review of the Secretary of State's office as what goes on a ballot measure?
No, so I will start off by saying I'm not your city council. You have fantastic counsel. But no, the answer is no. At this point, we are not in a safe harbor environment. all of the Secretary of State's rules would apply to the city after it actually refers a ballot measure out and once it's certified for the ballot by the county clerk's office.
So this is information that could precede the election.
Yes.
To let people know during that information gathering and, and theme generating, campaign theme generating time period. Okay.
Yeah, we encourage our public clients, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine.
We encourage our public clients to use as much of the pre-referral time to communicate as possible, because you're given far greater latitude as a public jurisdiction to use persuasive language, to really make the case to your residents about why you're making the decision that you're making, why you're referring it, what the benefits would be. Oregon law gets much more restrictive once you have referred it out. And again, in terms of safe harbor with the Secretary of State's office, I will tell you that over the last 15 years, as we've had multiple secretaries of state, the process for going through safe harbor review and getting that Secretary of State review seal on it has changed with each incumbent in the SOS office. We see about 50% of our clients no longer pursuing the safe harbor process because it can be a little difficult, cumbersome, and also produce some wonky results sometimes. So about half won't even go through it, half do go through it. And again, that's a process choice that we'll have to get to once we get to that place. But even when clients don't actually go through that formal SOS review process, which is optional, we do work very closely with the counsel for our clients, as well as within those ORS statutes, to make sure that any language, any document that we're putting out is compliant, or at least we believe very strongly that it is compliant. Yeah.
And I also wanted to thank Lindsay and Chris for putting this together in the Spanish for us. So the FAQ will be available in the Spanish language too for Gladstone residents.
I think one of the things that might be important to hear is to reassure our residents that we will continue to have a physical presence of Gladstone Fire in our downtown area. That's an important thing, I think, for our community. They really take pride in the fire department, and having them be sort of local to our downtown is really important. And I think that could persuade a lot of people. I see that as coming up a lot. Are you still going to be, have a physical presence at the Gladstone Fire Department?
I think that's a great comment. It didn't occur to me that people might think that annexing into Clackamas Fire means we send the services out. So good. That's an important thing to clarify. That's been part of the strength of the contract. That we did preserve a presence here. It was a very smooth transition as far as public image and staffing and all the rest, except that the staffing went up and the coverage went up. So it improved time-wise and personnel-wise, but the presence and the visibility and the community involvement, that was a very smooth transition and continuity. So I'm glad you made that observation. Councilor Blaug lives, a couple of our councilors just live right around the corner from the fire department. And so it's good. They're sensitive to that issue and how the community views it.
And I had just to piggyback on that. So in fact, there wouldn't be a scenario where we might lose that fire station years down the road.
That's a great question. If you look at where the Gladstone Fire Station is strategically located, it is a very synergistic relationship between the citizens of Gladstone, as well as into the southern side of Oak Grove and into the northern side of Oregon City down by the bridge. So to answer your question, we would need that fire station there where it's at. You might see in the future, 20 years down the road, I mean, I can't promise past me being here that there might be a better strategic location within the city of Gladstone based compared to where it's currently at. But I don't see that the analytics, Dan, if you can help me out here, do you see any analytic based on Dark Horse that reflects the Gladstone Fire Station not being strategically in the best spot that it currently is?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chief. I think one of the some things to look at is just drive times. If you just put a drive time 4, 6, 8, 10, 12-minute drive time at all of our fire stations, and then you look at where that gets you. The city of Gladstone, it is a small community, but the fire station has great access to all the surrounding areas that the chief spoke to. When you do look at Oregon City, you look at how busy it is and how more congested it is. And 10 years ago, the drive time map looked different than it does today. And here, there hasn't been a ton of change with intersections, and you have Highway 99 is the main route of travel. So I don't really see that changing. But getting in and out of here, it's very easy. A right, left, go behind the station or jump on McLaughlin. It is located in a phenomenal spot.
Counselor, did that answer both your questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just was curious if there was maybe a future plan where it looks like it might be on 99 or something. That's great. Thank you.
Councilor Labonte, if the annexation was approved, we would do a separate agreement with Clackamas Fire to allow them to stay there for 99 years. So I don't know about 20 after you leave, but I got 99. So
I like the 99. I like the 99.
As the historian, they call me, as the historian being with Clackamas for 40 years, I actually worked for 30 years, started at Clackamas 71 just down the road on 82nd Drive, and then a director for 10. When I look at the map and I think of those 12 different fire departments, 4 of which touch your borders, it used to be Oak Lodge to your north and Clackamas 71, Clackamas 54, and Oregon City. When I look at those 12 previous departments, no community ever lost their main station. They've all stayed the same, but what has happened in the case of Beaver Creek, it moved half-mile down the road. In the case of, what was the other community that it moved slightly? Damascus, it moved a block away, the new station. But what's happened more than anything is as certain communities have developed over time, new stations have popped up. The station on 172nd, it's a new one. Mount Scott was the new one. So more than anything in Oregon City, South End was a new one. So as communities evolved and grew, what you could see is even a second one somewhere in Gladstone if it made sense. So
We don't have any land.
but that's happened. So that's happened. I just wanted to add that because that's happened what I've seen over these last 40 years more than any community losing their station. So.
All right. Sounds like we've gotten some real good information here. A very good plan for going ahead. We understand kind of some of the time constraints that the city council is under if we were to decide to go ahead and refer this. And that's helpful for us to make an informed decision. Is there anything else we need to cover tonight? All right.
What was our time?
Yeah, I think the July meeting, a decision at the July meeting would allow us to meet the August 15th deadline for making a referral. That was the little box in the corner of one of the slides.
Okay. What would be asked of us at the open houses? Nothing or?
Of city councilors?
Yeah, nothing.
We wouldn't ask anything of city councilors. Okay. Now, that said, we certainly welcome the city council to participate if they would like to.
You can hand out business cards with a QR code on them.
We could do that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good approach because then you're not held for anything that you say, off the cuff in a meeting. They go to a source where the information is vetted and approved and consistent. But we can also, part of our job is to listen to the community. And this is a time when those emerging themes, the experiences of people who got a very quick response and they're very grateful for it, or the people whose children were so glad to encounter a firefighter firsthand on a community event. Those kind of experiences will form the thematic basis of the campaign that we do. And so that just takes listening to stories. Be the kind of people you are that are tuned into the public and their needs and their concerns and their joys. And, and that will be very helpful in guiding our campaign team to doing this.
Yeah, I will say that the city is blessed on an issue like this, from a messenger standpoint, versus, a bond, to repair the water system or the sewer system or anything else that could come up. In the fact that you have firefighters serving as frontline messengers on a fire-related issue. I've read hundreds and hundreds of surveys in my career. I have never seen a survey where firefighters are not the most trusted messengers on any issue, let alone a fire issue. So I would trust that and allow the voices of the experienced professionals to guide the conversation. Obviously, as counselors, elected officials, kind of who your core constituents are and are able to have those conversations. But from a public presentation standpoint, we see this time and time again in surveys that folks want to hear directly from frontline first responders on public safety issues.
Mr. Stewart, did you have a comment as well?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one point to share about the timeline. You mentioned July needing to make a decision. So I think a couple thoughts on that. So when we think about the August deadline for the ballot referral or to go to the county recorder, there's a couple steps within that. So one, the city would need to refer it to the voters, but a precursor step to that is the city and the district agreeing that the district would receive the city to annex them. And so that could be done in the June meetings. That could be something that's pursued in June, or it could be something that is pursued in a tighter timeline in July. And I think we're a little bit away from determining that with city and district staff and council. But so there may be some decision points in June to make as well. But all of this process really is about gathering community input and voter feedback. And so having those extra steps is just one more opportunity to have public input and comment.
Thank you for that reminder. This underscores a comment you made earlier. This annexation, this is not Russia annexing Crimea. This is a mutual thing between the two of us. So we sometimes, from the city perspective, we forget that you have a say in this as well. And so thank you for reminding us of the timing of all the decisions that need to be made between the two groups.
Yeah, is actually from a geographical standpoint, if you look at that map, Gladstone almost looks like Kaliningrad, right in the center of Europe. I don't think that I'm looking at Administrator Betts here. I don't think that there's a formal decision that we need on this. But I think with general consensus or acquiescence, I can work directly with you and with Chad on developing at least draft measure language that can move us further down, so that you're not going to be considering an issue, in a theoretical way, but we can actually produce some draft ballot materials for the city council to look at and socialize. So we can start making that decision. June is a fine timeline for me.
Yeah, this is not a decision-making meeting tonight. This is an information gathering for the decision. And
yeah, but if there's head nods, then
head nods.
That's all I need is head nods.
So staff has their instructions for going forward, and we will. And Administrator Betts generally helps schedule things in a timely way, and we will follow that recommendation, how to involve staff and legal staff and everyone else and bring to the council timely and work with you as well. So I think we're all on the same page with that. I want to thank everybody who came tonight, who presented, who participated, who has an interest in this. We are grateful that we have had this level of support from the community and continued improvement in the quality of the service and the reliability. Councilor Mitchell, did you have another comment to make?
Yeah, that was exactly my question. If staff would have enough time to with the language, and if there were revisions, if we're deciding in July, if they have enough time by August, if that's.
Yeah, so the council actually has a meeting on August 12th, your regular scheduled meeting on August 12th, and the deadline to adopt the ballot title will be August 15th. So as long as, if we present it to you in July, you want to make changes, we can come back to you at a regularly scheduled meeting, even a special meeting.
All right, I think that answers everything. So thank you all tonight. We are adjourned at 6:46.